Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /Entitled People, where people truly think it's all about them and who cares about anyone else. And in today's episode, we've got family drama going on, guys. Family members are ruining their lives, crossing boundaries. We've got entitled cheating Karens, and one OB tells a story about their unhinged Karen mom. It's another wild one, guys. So sit back, relax, and seriously, try not to shake your heads too hard in this one. So my cousin, who I'll call Jake, 30 years old, has always considered himself to be the favorite of all the grandkids because of how our grandparents would always do stuff specifically with him. The real reason why they, quote, only spend time with him is because he lives 5 minutes away from them, whereas the rest of us all live in different states, me being the furthest at a 13-hour car ride. And seriously, none of us know where this entitlement comes from. Even Jake's parents have called him out on this behavior, but it doesn't change. So to the story. My grandma passed away 10 years ago, and my grandpa's getting up there in age. He's 92 years old, but still amazingly healthy despite it all. That said, my dad, aunts, and uncles were having some discussions with him leading up to the summer family reunion regarding funeral costs, making sure his will was up to date, insurance, all that stuff. We get to the reunion this past August, and all's going well until Jake starts boasting how he's totally getting the house and Grandpa's refurbished cars. My grandpa rebuilds old cars with my uncle, Jake's dad. We all just ignore him like usual, which seems to upset him, so he decides to prove it to us. He walks up to Grandpa and he asks directly about the will. Grandpa then gathers all 9 of the grandkids together and he tells us all that his major assets, house and cars, will be sold and divided equally among all the grandkids. Now Jake lost his lid because despite years of being told that he loves all of his grandchildren equally, Jake still believed that he was the favorite and would therefore get everything from the inheritance. It got even worse when he realized that this included our step-cousin Erin, 25 years old, who despite being in the family since she was 12 years old, wasn't even a real grandkid and she should get nothing. If that wasn't bad enough, he then went and he started listing reasons why nobody should get anything. Well, as soon as that was said, this devolved into literally the entire family ganging up on Jake, hurling all kinds of insults at him for all the things he said. And the reason I'm sharing this now is I just got off the phone with one of my cousins an hour ago, who told me that Jake was arrested last night for trying to steal one of Grandpa's cars, the car that he says he deserves the most. But since he never once actually helped with rebuilding any of those cars, this idiot tried to steal one that didn't even work yet. So from what I've heard, Jake's currently sitting in a jail cell with his parents refusing to bail him out. And what's worse for Jake is Grandpa has a meeting with his attorney next Thursday to remove Jake from the will. And just to clarify, Grandpa's discussed this many times in advance with all of his kids, my dad, aunts, and uncles, that when he passes, the money from the house and the car sales goes to the grandkids. Everyone will still be getting sentimental items too, of course. And the thing is, none of us know why or where Jake gets his ego from. He's a college graduate, has a great job working for a local mining company. His parents are honestly my favorite people to hang out with. He doesn't do drugs, nothing like that. In fact, he's the kind of guy to nurse a single beer for an hour and call it a night, so this came as a surprise. Yeah, the post ends right there, guys, but what a surprise indeed, and what a mistake on Jake's part. Like, what was he thinking, right? I'm gonna make sure I get this car, so I'm just going to steal it from Grandpa, who's still alive. Guys, I don't know how he thought that was gonna end, but it's safe to say that he's probably no longer the favorite after this. And this person comments and says, "It's amazing how many people feel like they're entitled to money from an inheritance. If you get anything from a family member or friend who leaves it to you when they pass, that's a gift. It's not something they owe, and you don't get to bitch about what you get. And this person comments, when my grandmother died, she arranged to give $1,000 to each of the grandkids. One of my uncles threw a tantrum because 2 of the cousins were conceived by my uncle in a sperm donor situation. So Tantrum Uncle tried claiming that they don't count as family. What an effing turd, burning bridges over $2,000. So this took place almost 2 years ago. My mother is super entitled, not to mention narcissistic and abusive. She pretended to change when we were adults. All that went out the window when during my pregnancy, everything had to be her way. If it wasn't, she would scream and she would say, "How dare I make everything about me?" ignoring the fact that she was making everything about her. One thing she demanded early on was a gender reveal. I still don't know why. She and my father didn't have them for my brothers or me, and my brothers also wanted a gender reveal. When I asked why, I was told because they wanted to. I just said no because I think they're creepy, to be honest. And this isn't a judgment on people who do have them, I just didn't want one for us. My husband agreed, and I offered a compromise to my mom to add pink filters to the ultrasound photos. But that wasn't good enough. My mother planned a secret gender reveal party anyways for a weekend I was visiting. I'm about 7 hours away from them, and she didn't tell me. She planned a party with pink gender reveal decorations. My dad let me know, and I was so upset. I talked to my mother, and she told me she was compromising by doing a small gender reveal because I didn't want a full-on party. I told her I appreciate the thought, but it wasn't something to compromise on because it wasn't something I wanted. I couldn't even cancel it myself because she didn't tell me who she invited. She and my brothers hounded my husband and I, trying to get us to change our minds. Even my dad reached out to ask me to go along with it to keep the peace. After weeks of this, my mother came to us and she meekly said she understands why we didn't want it, but that she'd bought some pink poppers on sale. She said it would mean a lot if we could please pop them and take some pictures with just my husband, dad, and brothers when we visited. Now, it was a completely different way than she'd been talking to me, so I agreed since I was taken aback. And a few photos couldn't hurt, right? Plus, she asked so nicely. Well, a week before we were to visit, I was flooded with calls and text messages congratulating me on my baby girl. My husband and I had only told immediate family at this point, as I had suffered a late loss previously, so I was surprised to know that they knew. Come to find out, my mom had changed the date, and she had the gender reveal party a week early. My husband and I weren't even in the state. She filmed it and she sent it to everyone in my family but my husband and I. She also didn't include any of my husband's family, even though she had their contact info. I tried to call her and it went straight to voicemail. 4 hours after sending it to everyone else, she sent the video to me. The video features my brothers breaking a piñata. When it explodes in pink powder, my mother says, "That's right, we're having a girl." Then they start popping pink poppers. Honestly, I thought it was pretty cringy. Finally, she answers me. I asked why the F they had a gender reveal party and sent the video without my involvement. She just dismissed me and she said, "I don't know why you're so upset. You didn't even want a gender reveal anyways." And that's exactly why I was upset. She stole my pregnancy announcement, and not only that, she specifically did the gender reveal I didn't want, and she hid it from me. I was so upset that I canceled visiting the following weekend, and I spent time with my husband's family instead. That's when we agreed to use my mother-in-law's middle name for my daughter. Hopefully you get some enjoyment from this story. I was so upset at the time, but looking back, the absurdity makes me laugh. My mother truly gets everything she wants. Guys, that is absolutely wild that Opie's mother did that. And not only that, she announced it as if it's her child. Guess what, whole family? We are having a girl. Like, some people truly just want to be the center of attention, don't they? They couldn't care less who they're affecting. And for all who are wondering how OP's mother reacted to OP using mother-in-law's middle name, listen to this post. My husband, the youngest of 5, was very close with his mother. Unfortunately, he's the only one whose children never got to meet her, as she passed away suddenly when he was 20, before having kids. When I was pregnant with my daughter, he said he was very excited, but sad that she'd never get to meet his mom. This is when I suggested that we name our daughter after mother-in-law in some way. I really liked mother-in-law's middle name, so I suggested we incorporate it. We decided to use it as our daughter's name. Our friends and family all thought this was a sweet gesture, but my mother was furious. Every conversation, she would rant how unfair it was, how I slighted her, and how I was favoring my mother-in-law over her, even though I've never met mother-in-law. She then sent me suggestions on better names to use. When I told her we wouldn't be using any of her suggestions, she lost it, saying we're disrespectful and that my husband was making this baby all about him, that we're ruining this experience of her first grandchild. She also said that my husband had his pick twice, because we were giving the baby mother-in-law's middle name, and the baby gets my husband's last name, so it's not fair. I was still in my doormat phase, so to compromise, I sent her the list of first names that we liked, and I encouraged her to pick one. She refused, saying none of them were as good as her picks, and none were good enough for her granddaughter. I was hormonal and pregnant, so I told her it's ridiculous for her to be so jealous of a dead woman, and that if she kept it up, she wouldn't be seeing my daughter at all. And to this day, she still makes snide comments about it behind my back, according to Dad. We're low contact with my family now, and I've learned to set firm boundaries, which has brought a lot of peace. It still annoys me, but there is enough space where I can at least laugh about it now, and hopefully you can laugh about it too. Honestly, sometimes that's all you can do, right? Is just laugh and shake your head about things. But just like that first post, guys, the self-entitlement does get the best of people sometimes. And the fact that OP's mother lost the privilege of being in her granddaughter's life all over a name, she needs to give her head a shake because her priorities are seriously out of alignment. And if you guys thought that was ridiculous, well, this next OP's mom takes things to the extreme. So my mom's in her late 60s, and she has a clear, untreated mental thing going on, which she's heavily in denial of. She's narcissistic, entitled, and she thinks she can do no wrong. And if something goes bad on her end, she thinks the world's out to get her and that nobody loves her, literally. When I got pregnant, I made the mistake of thinking it might soften my mother, or perhaps change her for the better. As I have had friends who, when they had a child, it was like a switch had been flipped and the baby healed the grandparents somehow. But not my mother. The moment she found out, she treated my pregnancy like a personal scandal she needed to correct. She fixated on the fact that my partner and I weren't married, as if that single detail erased the fact that we're adults with jobs, a home, and a planned baby, as my biological clock is ticking. She would call me crying one minute, screaming the next. One day, she even approached my partner at his job in the parking lot, telling him that he'd ruined my life, and if he doesn't want to marry me, to do the right thing and disappear from my life. Her solution to everything was me moving back in with her. Eventually, she was more frequently crossing boundaries. She would often share personal information to family when I asked her not to. She would talk bad about me to family and friends, and acting victim when I confronted her. So longer story short, I sent her a long text message. Not emotional, not dramatic, just facts. I told her the harassment stops now, that she's not welcome in my life, and she will not have a relationship with my child. I thought that would snap her back to reality. Instead, she shows up at our house at 11 o'clock at night, shrieking in the street. She screamed that I was stealing her baby. and that she had rights and she would never allow this, and as her daughter, she forbids me from cutting her out. The screaming actually got so bad that the neighbors turned on the porch lights. I told her to leave or I'd call the police. She then called me some names, and in the end, she wishes she never made the mistake of having me, which is something she'd said many times in the past. For weeks after that, she pretended like nothing happened. She just talked to me how she normally would. She would text me asking how to reset Wi-Fi or where I'd eaten dinner that day, just nonsense. I stayed civil but distant. I knew she was trying to dig into my personal life, but no bueno, no access. She knew the rules. Or, at least I thought she did. One afternoon, she sent me a video. The video showed her walking from the living room to the guest room, except it wasn't a guest room anymore. In the video, she said it was a nursery for my baby to stay in when I come to visit. And y'all, it was a fully stocked nursery. The walls were repainted, there was a crib assembled, a changing table, and in the video, she said, "I can't believe my baby will be here soon." She then went on and she said things like, "This is where she'll sleep, this is where I'll take care of her," so on and so on. The whole time, I was fixated on how she said it was my baby. The second video she sent was a car seat in the back of her car, just in case I'd ever have her watch my newborn. She said she could take her to the mall and stuff. I ignored the video messages for a few days, not knowing what to say. But eventually, when she kept spamming me, talking about my child, I called her immediately and reminded her slowly that she'll not be meeting my child and that none of what she showed me reflects reality. She just laughs and she said, "Oh, we'll see how that works out. A child has to know their grandma, sweetie." Now, I don't know what she thinks is going to happen. She thinks I'll change my mind, that she'll show up and I'll hand my child over and allow her to be in my child's life. I just want y'all to know that I won't hesitate to call the cops on my mom and get a restraining order. And that's what scares me the most. Hopefully it won't get to that point, but guys, I have read stories where grandparents get a bit too extreme with the whole "your kid is my kid" thing. Like grandparents turning a guest room into a baby room for when they watch the kiddos isn't something that's unheard of, and in my opinion, it's actually a sweet gesture. But an OP situation where they don't want mom to be a part of their child's life at all, that is super duper creepy. So I'm not even sure if this is the right place to post this, but I really need to get it out. I confronted my parents today, and I've been shaking and crying ever since. For some context, I'm a 36-year-old guy. 15 years ago, when I was 19, I got into serious trouble. I take full responsibility for it, and I still carry a lot of shame and guilt over the whole thing. And this wasn't cultural or religious, it was just about embarrassing the family name. Here's what happened. When I was 19 years old, my ID was stolen and it was used in another state. Somehow, that led to my driver's license being suspended nationwide. I never received any of the notices from that other state, so I had no idea how bad things were at first. I immediately started trying to fix the situation, but at the same time, I had a couple of tickets in my home state I needed to pay. And the problem was money. I had rent to cover, and my full-time job was on the verge of shutting down. In order to survive, I was doing freelance work on the side, and hoping things would turn around, but that never happened. Long story short, I was arrested, and I spent 2 weeks in jail. It wasn't great, but it did clear the tickets in my home state. My family, however, saw it very differently. Because of this, they completely disowned me. No contact, no support, nothing. All they saw was their degenerate son disgracing the family name as I went to jail. I lost my family overnight. At that point, I decided if my family hated me, I didn't need them. About a year later, I changed my last name, my phone number, and my email. I finished college, built a career, and honestly, I'm happier now than I've ever been. And then 2 weeks ago, there was a knock on my door. I opened the door to find it was my mom and dad. 15 years, no calls, no letters, no contact at all. The only thing I could say was, "How did you find me and what are you doing here?" My mom just said, "We paid a private investigator $5,000. They finally found you through Facebook and confirmed it was you." I told her, "You didn't answer my second question. What are you doing here?" That's when my mom then said, "It's been 15 years. I'm hoping you learned a lesson. You've missed out on a lot." I told them, "Yes, I learned my lesson. One of them is to never expect help or understanding from anyone, especially family. I succeeded and built a life, and I did it entirely without you, so please leave and don't ever come back." I then shut the door and locked it. They did knock, and they demanded to be let in for about 15 minutes. They eventually left. After that, I did some digging, and I found out I really have missed out on a lot. Nieces, nephews, siblings-in-law. But the truth is, I don't know any of them, and I feel like I don't need to. My one friend said I might have gone too far, and I should have at least heard my parents out. Maybe, I don't know. I hope that would have been the end of it, but it wasn't. My parents started stalking me. I'll be honest, they're not dangerous, they're just incredibly annoying. Last week, I had 5 days off in a row, so I decided to take a short trip to the city. I live within walking distance of the train station, and they followed me there. I kept my AirPods in the whole time. I could tell they were trying to talk to me, but I ignored them completely. Other people on the platform even told me that my parents were talking to me, and I just said, "I know. I don't know them, and I'm not dealing with them." I eventually got on the train, and I left them standing there watching me go. And I won't lie, I did love it. Eventually, though, it got to a point where I had to acknowledge them. They weren't going to stop. We met in the park across from my apartment, and I told them this would be the only time I'd ever talk to them, that I was letting them speak before I walked away for good. I asked why, after 15 years, they suddenly wanted back in my life, and why they disowned me in the first place. They just told me that I ruined the family name and I brought shame on them, and that cutting me off was the only way to make it right. They wanted to find me because my name had started coming up again, because the family had grown. Brothers and sisters-in-law were asking who I was. They said they have a niece that they think I'd love, and a nephew was born last year. They said now was the time to fix things. They also said that seeing my apartment and my life proved I'd learned my lesson, and that I'd become a better person. And that's when I snapped. I told them I did everything on my own. Nobody from my old life even helped me. Nobody. I told them to tell the truth if anyone asked, that I went to jail for 2 weeks, and because of that, they decided to get rid of me. I told them that the only person who stood by me was my cousin Jean, who isn't even a blood cousin, and that's why I took her last name. I told them I still rely on nobody, and I don't want or need them in my life. They made their choices, and I've made mine. I then said to them that this would be the last time we ever speak. If they keep following me or showing up at my apartment, I would talk to the police and have them arrested. I then went inside, locked everything down, closed the curtains, and I've been crying ever since. What a situation to be in. And for OP to confront his parents and to tell them, never come back into my life and screw you, kudos to them. Like, they disowned OP when OP needed them, and they can't just decide to allow OP back into their lives because, oh, we think you've learned your lesson. Plus, family are asking about you now. How ridiculous is that, guys? And this person comments, they disowned you over a couple of traffic tickets. The real damage to any honor they have is they didn't help out their son when he was in financial trouble. I'm willing to bet that they want money from you now that you're living a good life. And this person says, I kept reading through thinking, wait, there's gotta be something more. This family disowned their child over a couple of effing traffic tickets? Like, what the F? You did nothing wrong, so stop taking the blame for any of this, and please get it out of your head that you shamed the family name. The only people who should be ashamed is them. And quite frankly, if that's the type of family they wanna be, I'm thinking there's not much there in the first place. traffic tickets unreal. So I don't really have a lot of people in my life right now, but I hope you can all enjoy this small victory with me. My ex and I were together for 4 years. I was actually out shopping for an engagement ring the day I found out she was cheating on me. Turns out, she'd been with this guy for 6 months, and he just found out about me around the same time I found out about him. He gave her an ultimatum, and she chose him. I was devastated, but there's no way that I can be with a cheater. So I spent the next month and change taking extra shifts and increasing my gym time to try to get my mind off of her. I blocked her and her family, as they were awful people anyways. Things were quiet until I get a text from an unknown number. It's my ex saying that she's pregnant and that I'm the father. Now, I don't believe her, but better to be safe than sorry for my potential child's sake, so I offered to get a test done. She refuses, saying that he and I were the only men she'd been with for years, and he already tested negative, so it had to be mine. I keep insisting that we get the test done, and after a lot of back and forth, she says that she'll schedule one, but that we should meet up beforehand and then head to the clinic to get the test done. I agree, because she finally accepted on getting this test done, so we meet up at this coffee shop near the clinic. I'm expecting a talk about what the next steps are if I do end up being the father. Instead, she tries to turn this conversation into a talk about the good old days when we were together and a bunch of nostalgic stories of us being happy together. I keep trying to steer the conversation back to the child and the test, but she just keeps going back to relationship talk, how she misses what we had. The whole time, I'm freaking out about this potential child I have to take care of, so I don't realize what she's doing at the time to try to get me to take her back. It then comes time for us to go to the clinic, and she starts asking if I have plans for the day and if I want to get a bite and hang out at her place for a bit. I respond that my only plans for the day are to get her to the clinic so we can get this test done and figure out what to do after that. I just want to get this stuff over with, not take a walk down memory lane, you know. That's when she excuses herself to go to the bathroom, and she comes back a few minutes later saying the clinic called her and they had to reschedule. I asked her if she was lying, and she said no, they called while she was in the bathroom. So I start to dial the clinic, and she freaks out, and she admitted that she never actually made this appointment. It's at this moment I pressed her for the truth, and she finally broke down and told me. The new boyfriend was confirmed to be the father from a paternity test. Once he found out he was the father, he ghosted her, and she's been unable to locate him. So of course, freaking out, she told her mom, who told her that the best course of action would be to talk to me about being this baby's father, since in her words, I'm an upstanding man who will do what's right and raise this child. I also want to add that this is said by the woman who once told me that she would rather die than invite me into her family. So anyways, after getting the truth, or at least some of it out of her, I got up and I left without another word. I got home and I've been on the receiving end of hundreds of messages from my ex, her family, and her friends, all making new accounts to message me to beg me to take her back. Some are even calling me an a-hole for abandoning her. But honestly, walking away from her and finally realizing that I'm better off without her has been such a freeing feeling, and I hope I can hold on to that feeling for a while because I needed this. Listen, I'd say OP dodged not a bullet but a cannon there, guys. But yeah, what I found absolutely bonkers was when OP mentioned her family and friends calling him an a-hole for abandoning her. Like, what? Like, she cheated, got caught, and not only that, she opted to ditch OP for this new guy. And now she wants to get back with OP because he's the good guy and he's responsible, said by the woman who hated him. In my opinion, OP needs to change his phone number and continue living his best life. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r slash entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r slash I don't work here lady, where Karens think that everyone on Earth is meant to serve them, and the stories are ridiculous. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.